Clicking record. So, welcome everyone. Good evening. I'm very happy to be here this evening with Dr. Robert Duncan. This is Ramola D from Ramola D Reports, and I'm here with a very special interview today. Robert Duncan has consented to do a live stream, so we are all going to be treated to a live interview this evening. Robert Duncan, as many people may know, is a scientist and an author. He is the author of The Matrix Deciphered and Project Soulcatcher, which many people may have read and may know about. And he's requested to introduce himself, so I'm going to turn the floor over to him right away. And Robert, do please tell us more, because that's part of what we wanted to start with really this evening, your background and who you are and the work you've done.
Yeah, I'm somewhat shy about talking about my background, but I have many degrees from great universities, Ivy Leagues, and I worked for the ABC companies that are often called DARPA, projects for the CIA, projects for the Department of Justice, projects for the Army, Navy. Examples of such projects are reading brain waves to control robots. I wrote the artificial intelligence code to track the the submarine fleets around the world, robotic surgery in medicine, and it's been quite an interesting career, and they could only have kept me dumb, and I loved my job, but I found out that people were using my work for amoral activities, not just for defense of my country and to catch criminals. They were using it for other purposes within my own country, and I could not have that. I've been an international business consultant, a professor, a long career doing many things. But I got into this line of research because I thought I would be the first to do human brain communications. I'm sorry, computer to human brain communications. And I found out this group of targeted individuals, which are complaining about the exact thing that you would expect from a weaponized version of BCI, or brain computer interfacing technologies, or brain to brain interfacing technologies. And I'm like, this is a bit coincidental, and rarely am I the first to discover anything. So I did more research, thoroughly convinced after working on it, portions of it for DARPA, and then realizing, oh my gosh, this is my work they're using to harm people. Um, and
Is it
so
possible
both,
that the work that you were doing was set up in such a way that it could have been used in that way?
oh yeah, absolutely. But remember, we're lied to as scientists, and we're compartmentalized. Uh, so I was doing, let's say I worked on voice morphing technology. Well, that was supposed to be used on enemy communications to sound like the general over the battlefield of the adversary and misdirect them. Well, I see that with TIs as well. They hear their parents' voice morphing and talking about them behind their back and being used in very deceptive ways. Same with voice recognition.
So, in a
Other
sense, you were putting two
portion,
and two together. The work that you
yeah,
had done, you were suddenly finding was being reported in the community from various people as
yeah,
occurring to them.
correct. And then so that led me on this, oh geez, it's been so long, at least 22-decade journey of researching and alerting the public to these technologies. I went
Was this back
to,
in the 90s or 80s, Robert? I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm just trying to get a sense of the time frame.
yeah, around 2000, around
Around
2000.
2000.
And, I even went with the former head of the LA FBI to Congress, spoke to the Judiciary Committee, the Armed Forces Committee, 23 senators, and most importantly, the Intelligence Committee, and they are supposed to be the oversight. It was obvious to me that this was MK Ultra on steroids, same tactics being used, the mind control, the breakdown of the human will, and using was programmed assassins or Manchurian candidates or whatever their desire may be, just eliminate the target. And the further I followed White Rabbit down the hole, more disturbing it got.
This is
and
absolutely incredible. First of all, thank you for doing that, for going to Congress and going and speaking to these Senate committees and to the Senate Intelligence Committee, etc. It sounds like this was a replay of the Church Committee of the 1970s then, because you were coming forward as a DoD CIA whistleblower and Navy and NATO, etc. whistleblower. Speaking about this matter, what was the reception like?
and this is when I lost faith of my government. Was that event. Um, the Senate Intelligence Committee said, we've never heard of MK Ultra. And that's their one job, was to know the
Everybody's heard of
background.
MK Ultra.
And so both the FBI, the head of the FBI and I look at each other like, oh, this is not going to go well. They're starting off with a lie. They've never heard of this. But Frank Church, ironically, I ended up in Idaho. In Frank Church, the senator.
Where you are.
Yeah, where I am, that started the investigations into MK Ultra. And now, it's gone through so many name changes. We just use that as an anchor point, but who knows what the new budget and the new name is at this point.
Well, you see, this is the whole thing, right? And this is part of what I hope we can talk about a little bit further. This is the whole issue, not just of compartmentalization, but about secrecy. There's there's a huge interest in keeping things secret, right?
Well, and I learned wise, because most humans want to do good. They want to believe they are doing good. And then especially if you work for government, you feel patriotic and you feel good, that pride, flowing through your veins. And if you knew the truth, you wouldn't do your job. And so they have to keep it compartmentalized.
Oh, you mean they're actually fooling the very people who are working for them?
Yes, correct. Only a very few at the highest levels know what's going on. So they have to fool everybody down the chain, and it works well. It works well. But their house of cards of lies is going to collapse soon, and there'll be quite a blowback from it.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. Considering the subject that we're dealing with, and the fact that what I've been reporting on for 5 years is precisely this, the consequences and the outcome of these compartmentalized and secretive programs that have wreaked havoc on this country and worldwide, actually. And that's something I wanted to ask you.
Yes.
How is it that MK Ultra has become a thing that is now having worldwide consequences, that people are reporting this around the world? The same thing, the same exact thing.
Yeah. And that's kind of how I test my subjects. And I've done 2,000 interviews at least, and they all started to sound alike. This is a script. It doesn't matter what country you're from, language you speak, what your education level is, or anything. They're using basically 7 or 8 different scripts. They're not very creative in the DoD. Let's put it that way.
I think we figured that out.
And it's a worldwide weapon. You can't put artificial electronic fences and boundaries around tax-based, borders. So no, it's worldwide, and it was intended to be worldwide for the New World Order government. And this, George Bush Sr. talked about New World Order. He was head of the CIA. Even we have a candidate, Barack Obama's Vice President Biden said the New World Order is of utmost importance in one of his latest speeches. So it really doesn't matter which candidate you vote for. It seems like they're all on board for this global takeover.
Would you say we are in the New World Order currently?
Yes and no. It's just going to get worse. All military technologies will eventually seep into the policing forces of the the United States, especially.
That's already happened, though.
Yeah, that's already happening. So yeah, we're in the middle of the transition. They have basically 4 more countries to go: China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran, and then the rest of the world's kind of nothing. Here's another kind of theory. Why would you want democracy in every country? Well, it's because of mind control weapons. We can control who gets into power. So the CIA gets especially interested when someone wins, let's say like Donald Trump or Jesse Ventura, who I interviewed with, governor of Minnesota.
Oh, yes, the very famous interview.
He said as soon as he got in, 11 or 12 CIA guys interviewed him in the basement of the government mansion or whatever, and asked him, "How did you get elected? You were not supposed to win." And so they were just curious why their voting models were wrong.
Wait a minute, I thought the CIA knew everything, controlled everything.
Yeah, well, sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes they get it wrong, and that's what they want to learn from.
Interesting.
But the point is to give the illusion of democracy and freedom that your vote counts, but not actually allow it to happen in terms of global events and
right. And they control it through the media. They maintain this farce that we are living in a separate nation, we have a democracy, etc. But it appears that from everything you are saying, that the military and intelligence powers in this country, well, we know they have a connection with the intelligence powers in other countries as well around the world. And they appear to be running the entire show, the world show, not just the US show. And, I would question the whole Russia-China thing as well. I mean, are they really separate countries? Are they really operating separately from the CIA and the DoD?
Oh, I don't know about that. I was brainwashed in the Cold War, and so I'm supposed to believe Russia's their enemy. And what?
Right. I mean, that's what we're living in America. That's what we're indoctrinated to believe. Russia is an enemy. China is an enemy. They're competing with us.
Yeah.
Etc.
And so it is interesting because without a foe, let's just say the whole New World Order thing works out and we're one world government. Well, now we have no one to kill anymore, and our entire killing is
we have no enemies except the people inside the country.
Will collapse, and the U.S. economy is based on a war machine. President General Eisenhower said it. Beware, this is what's going to happen if you do not stay vigilant. It will become the entire economy, and they will create wars just to keep people employed. And unfortunately, it became true. And then we have President JFK, who I think was just about to spill the beans more exactly about these mind control weapons.
Really?
And then he got assassinated by a Manchurian programmed, brainwashed, assassin. So it gets very deep.
So this suggests that these particular programs, these mind control programs, these neurotech targeting programs, neuro disruption programs, they are sort of creme de la creme. They're the ultimate secret that the DoD CIA wants to keep forever secret. And they really think they can get away with it. I mean, how have they gotten away with it so far? up till now?
Using many techniques by counterintelligence. We spend a lot of money on counterintelligence. And what does that mean? Literally dumbing down the population. So we create cover stories like alien abductions or
Okay,
uh,
that's sort of disinfo mind control, right? Through television
yeah,
programming and stories in the community, etc., about aliens, UFOs, flying saucers, abductions, military, which are actually military abductions from what many people report, etc., things like that. But are they also using technology to dumb people down?
they're doing both. So yes, it is a way in which to, let's say you're competing economically with another country, or in the Olympics. They've been accused of using this. You can dumb down a population or confuse them. And I say counterintelligence does enough of that just on its own, or watching the general mass media news will dumb you down enough.
Right.
But they're doing the opposite experiments too. We only, in our investigation, we only hear about the people complaining about the tortures and the really brutal experiments that they're doing. But I've run into other people where they have a voice, for example, that just compliments them all the time and puts them up, and you're the best. And
Great.
they're also, but you don't hear about them because they like it.
They think
And
it's their inner voice that's
yeah, they
sort of
think that's
being
their
very
inner.
optimistic. They think
Yes,
they're wonderfully optimistic people generally, etc. That's
exactly.
really interesting.
And then they're doing experiments combining 4 or 5 up to 6 minds together, hive minds they're
Hive
called.
minding.
Another term is brain nets, and they're doing experiments of how to firewall the human mind. There was a colonel which had a famous paper. I forget his name right now, but it was the mind has no firewall, and it's so true. We didn't evolve that. It's not part of our structural makeup of the human brain or any brains that I know of. And um, and so they're trying to develop literally thought filters, so you can't have specific thoughts. I want to go out and kill someone. Well, as soon as your brain thinks that, it dampens the signal. So that could be a good use, maybe. Um, but they're also increasing intelligence. So 4 brains hive together, they'll become dysfunctional in some ways because you're rewiring them. And MIT's done this with blue light mice, and they are able to solve a singular problem with combining brains. And so it's interesting. We think of ourselves as, well, 2 halves of a human brain. You can cut the corpus callosum, you still think you're one person. And they used to do that for epilepsy surgeries. But you're technically 2 different people. But this is the reverse. This is integrating more brains, more half brains into one individual. And hence you can increase intelligence for warfare strategy or whatever you want to use it for. So there are a lot of interesting network configurations and that's what I do. I just theorize. I don't experiment on humans whatsoever, but I'm working on a book about this.
Oh,
Um,
that's great to hear, Robert. This particular notion alone, just this notion of hive minding, bringing a few brains together to create a brain net or a hive mind, is very interesting. And you're suggesting that, scientists get into this because it sounds kind of interesting from a theoretical point of view. But in actuality, what people are reporting in the field, those who are targets, those who are reporting they are targeted individuals, they're reporting victims of neurotech. They are reporting that, yeah, they can hear hive minds. They can hear people having a sort of roundtable conversation in their heads,
mhm.
via V2K or synthetic telepathy, etc. And it's not a very pleasant notion. They don't want to hear people talking to them all the time.
No, no, it's totally stealing one's brain, stealing their soul. You know, there's horror movies like called Body Snatcher, and that's in its best form. That's what this technology can do. It can run other software, overlay it on your hardware called the brain, and you know, this brings up so many issues. Well, how can you have justice if you don't know whose mind was behind the actions of the body? And so it's going to turn the justice system on its head. Uh, they can erase memories, reprogram them with false memories. And so you can't even use a polygraph test to see who they are, who they are. The CIA has been well known to split personalities and using hypnosis and other things. And one of their old mind control weapons was called REHIC, remote hypnotic intercerebral control. So let's say you're just connecting two minds. One is a trained mind of how to clone beliefs onto the target mind. You can make them angry. You can alter their voice. Let's say you're a politician and you want to make them sound like an idiot in front of the microphone. You can screw up their speech. You can, I mean, you can alter the outcome of so many things. You can insert thoughts, but some of them were, you're talking about the overt targets that literally extra sensory perception. So we did a lot of that work in the 70s with the Russians. Well, it's true, but I always thought of it as mystical force or whatever. No, no, it's literally training the brain to understand external neural signals. So, for example, Duke University, they plugged some electrodes into a monkey's brain, gave it a third arm to eat food. The brain is very malleable, learned how to pick up food just with the robotic arm and feed itself. A third arm, you know. And so think of extrasensory perception as you're training these brains to accept the signals of something else that is biocorrelated with it to its brain. But yeah, right now it's being used with trickery. So there's it's called offensive information warfare, general terminology of you know, that can be anything from hacking your computers and spoofing you to your friends, saying you sent the email, spoofing your voice, you know, on a phone call. But it's such a wide variety. And this is the more secret of the technologies, and especially dream programming. That's the one that people are most susceptible to. They can manipulate subliminally your dreams, and your dreams affect the conscious when you're awake. And that's just dangerous. That's not free will. You're taking away someone's autonomy of thought and decision making. So I don't even like the term free will. I prefer degrees of autonomy is the term I would replace that with. So I'm sorry I've been babbling.
No, that's quite all right. It
Did
sounds
I
like
answer
there's
your question?
no, I think you did. I think, you know, there it sounds like what you were talking about is there are so many different technologies in use. There are so many different aspects of these mind control programs that are currently being used. You know, as we know from listening to the reports of people out in the field, and as you know, perhaps from also your doing your interviews and also perhaps from your work, and that's really what I'm interested in finding out more about. I mean, you kind of worked with these guys. You worked in the DoD, you worked in DARPA, you know, you worked with the CIA. I understand you can't talk about everything you worked on, but
No, what you're asking about is what is their moral alignment? And I will tell you, I've worked with some of the most brilliant scientists in the world, but only a few of them were not morally flexible. and that's the term they use in the CA.
Which means they were all mostly morally flexible.
Yes, they didn't really care
They
who
didn't
would
care,
be doing
right?
it. They don't care. Yeah. You know, and yeah, I just wasn't born that way. You know,
Thank God for that, Robert.
I'm here to, my primary directive is to optimize happiness, minimize suffering, and a sustainable way for all living creatures on this planet. Very simple, and maybe my formula is different than others, but it keeps my moral compass set in the right track.
So it seems like, the people who are working on these brain projects, they're interested in probing, going beyond the limits. There are no limits, no borders, no boundaries, no morals, no scruples. Head right ahead, see what you can do, see the extent to which you can control somebody else. And they're not just interested in controlling one other person, like in this Manchurian candidate program. They just want to control one person or two people or three or four. They want to control everybody, right? They're interested in
Oh,
controlling everybody.
ultimately, that's the goal. Even I think it was, somebody in our government in the Justice Department said, we're going to start turning to pre-crime. So yeah, you eventually have to read every person's brain, see when those moments of rage occur, and maybe arrest them, to prevent them from doing anything.
I would suggest that we're already in that
Yeah,
space.
I think so. But it's being again, it's still being rolled out. I would say, I would say it's all grayscale. It's not black and white. So it's a matter of control, how well the cognitive models are working. And that's why they have to grab more people, their models, and experiment on them to add them to the probability databases using a Markov models, etc. And so I would say it's probably, due to the bell curve, 80% rolled out. Can you hear me okay? I got a message
Yes,
from the internet
it's
is
been kind
unstable.
of, it's been
Okay,
kind of dicey. It's been kind of shaky.
okay.
Yeah, but you're okay now. I can hear you. Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
You said
we're in the,
about 80% you think has been already rolled out?
yeah, I would give it about 80%. So they're grabbing the unusual minds, the creative ones, the misfits, the hyper intelligent, those minds they can't model easily into the, their basic model. Um, and so they're studying those to add those probabilities.
And they're doing it through, they're using the FBI as well, right? And they're using
Oh God,
the fakery of the terrorist watch list by putting all the smart people on the terrorist watch list
yeah.
and then subjecting them to these gory experiments, right?
Well, I'm always, I know a couple high-level FBI, former FBI that retired after 20 in their 25 years of service or whatever, and they talk about how corrupt their agencies were, and we're hearing about it now with the FISA courts, that the FBI was, uh, literally faking stuff so they could get an acceptance for false surveillance. But those have always been my good guys. If the highest level of sort of criminal justice has failed this country, there is no hope now for any legitimate government. And so I've deluded myself, that they are the good guys, but and that the only reason they might have done what they have done was because they were tricked by false intelligence, which we've seen many times. The very thing that led to the Vietnam War, for example, Gulf of Tonkin, or a whole bunch of other instances. The Joint Chiefs of Staff, and this is my favorite top secret document that was leaked, was Operation Northwoods. They're going to attack civilian sites in the U.S., military sites. So we go to war with Cuba. I
Cuba,
mean,
I was going to mention Cuba.
our government, those at the very top are very conniving, and as long as they can get away with it, they will. And now I remember your question. You asked how they kept this secret for so long. They haven't. They've hidden it in plain view. It's almost in every movie now you see in Hollywood. And that's kind of their way of saying, no, it must be science fiction for the public, or they're trying to get them used to the concept. This is
That's
what,
really a good point.
um,
Basically, they are revealing it all, but people don't have any idea. And mainstream media has a large part to do with it because they just kind of
mhm.
keep movies and fiction and Hollywood in one category, and then act like following what's going on the Hill is another category. And there's a lot of lies and cover-ups going on by a media.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And so, one of my professors at Harvard was B.F. Skinner, and he was a behavioral psychologist, world famous. Um, and there was rumors he put his children in boxes to prove his theories about language and belief systems and everything else, religions, and that he actually did it. And back in his day, science was, above government, and they just said, "Oh, do whatever you want, experiment on humans." So he was both a hero and a villain, but that's really what we have going on now within the bubble of information that Americans get, or any country really, but America's ranked right in the middle of free media by Reporters Without Borders. But if you talk to the locals, I live in a very middle America kind of environment. They really believe they're getting the truth, and America is free, and they're in this information bubble, which is called the Skinner box. You have to travel the world and get, more perspectives to see that no, the the world and your government is not what you think it is.
I love that the Skinner box. That sort of describes exactly what most of us are inside, thanks to
Mhm.
reading the New York Times, the Washington Post, watching CNN, etc. That's the kind of storyline you get from just staying within that space. But coming out of that space and kind of returning a little bit to this issue of the technology and the issue of the kind of behavior management pre-crime technology that they are rolling out and that they are using and that they've been developing over the last 30 to 40 years, if not earlier. It's
60 years at least.
60 years. And it seems like there's a kind of a coming together, a confluence of non-lethal weapons technology, neurotechnology, kind of weaponized neuroscience coming together. And then from the computer world, you've got machine learning and artificial intelligence coming together. So all of this, would you see this as a kind of a moment of confluence?
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's good that we have government agencies that can predict and see ahead and that are looking for the dangers of these new technologies, genetic engineering. I want to buy my own CRISPR machine. Maybe I'll create a virus here,
Oh my gosh. It's
and
getting
so
worse out there with CRISPR editing.
yeah, and so it's good that they look ahead, um, but their secrecy has actually caused more damage for solutions and health for humans. So yeah, these technologies that are being torturing people around the world, causing them to shoot up schools and airports and other things, they hide it in their news broadcasts. Oh, he's just crazy. They don't go any deeper. Um, and they could be used for the exact opposite purpose. We could empty our jail system out through correctional behavioral modification. We could uh, uh, do mental health therapies for many people. We could, all the good stuff is ready to come out, but it's such a great secret weapon. This way we can control leaders of the world. This way we can get their secrets, from the other countries without them even knowing it. And so that kind of power is corruptible.
So you
Um,
think that's really what's kind of prompting the continued secrecy? Because they seem to have a sort of a granite lock here. They don't want to expose this at all. They've got
well,
they've got psychiatry in place, to tamp down any kind of report from the community where people are actually exposing and whistleblowing about it. They bring in the, you are crazy, you are a schizophrenic story
yeah.
to stop it.
Well, I mean, you have to imagine. try to put yourself in their shoes. You're some important top brass general at the Pentagon. You know about this. You've ordered this. And if this leaks out, not only is your career over, you're probably going to go to a Nuremberg trial for treason. So in the shame of the country, such as America, we're supposed to be the world cop and moral leader. You can't say, yeah, we've been manipulating democracies for 60 years and we've been torturing and we made all this stuff up. You can't. So they don't want it to be leaked this way. The way they want it leaked is the way I've said on my website, I think 10 years ago. They want a parallel rediscovery of mind-controlled technologies, such as what Elon Musk is doing. So he takes the blame.
That's really interesting. They want to blame the commercial creators of it.
Yes, yeah. And so that way, then, so it's a good sign. And then all you need is a brain chip from Elon Musk and your mental illness is gone and your voices and everything else. And then he is the savior and he's the devil because he was probably doing it before, is how TIs will, view it. So I think it's a great thing what he's doing because it will show the technology is real, at least to the mass media idiots,
So do you think Elon knows what's going on? He's aware of these DoD programs?
I don't know. I've never spoken to him. I sure would like to. He's one of my heroes. He does need a representative of ethics within his company if he's not aware of what's been going on and how he might be portrayed as the bad guy. So,
well, I have a question about Elon Musk. He's spoken about Neuro. He's pretty much confessed on TV worldwide, nationwide, that, tests are underway to pretty much inject people with Neuro. It can be done through a syringe, etc. He's indicated, in other words, that he's part of, various compartmentalized black ops projects.
That's a leap. I don't know. I think it's a little bit of a leap. I think he's a good guy, but again, I was suckered into the DOD and DARPA too. So
yeah,
I may not be a good judge. I may not be a good judge of character.
I mean, there may be many of you around. I mean, seriously, a lot of the guys who go into DOD and CIA and work for the Navy, etc., and work on these black ops projects are good guys. They go in, with good intentions, and they, give of their greatest expertise. They get into the program and they work deeply in the program as it is. They have no idea, perhaps, how their technology and their work is being used, right?
They're absolutely correct. Minus the few of the morally flexibles I talked about.
Right, right.
But no, in a way, they don't want to know. They want the lie. My country's the best, and I don't want to hear anything else, and it's going to be used for good. That's as far as their moral compass goes. And you're not allowed to talk about what you do. So you can't get any feedback other than the echo chamber amongst the people. I call them the people that wear bling, with all the metal.
They like the metals.
Yeah, they like shiny objects, yes. And so it really, I'm with you. I hate secrecy. And knowing now how this cancer virus of technology has spread in secret to basically overthrow mankind, freedom, and democracy. I remember one of my CIA friends, when I first started researching this, said, "Bring it to the light and the cockroaches will run." I always remember that quote.
That's really great, though, that he gave you that advice.
Yeah. He meant well. He knows he has to take orders, do his job, not question it from his handler or whatever. But he still had enough moral principle to understand what I must do.
So it seems to me that suggests to me, and this is very hopeful, really, that perhaps there are people, even watching us right now from the DoD and CIA who know exactly what's going on and who are actually glad when there is a bit of exposure like this, when you speak out, etc., and when
No,
people do interviews.
I no, I think there's a bifurcation of loyalties going on, that perhaps they aren't brave enough to do it themselves because they don't want to lose their job or worse, their lives.
Right.
But I think we got a lot of cheerleaders on our side.
Okay, that's good to know at least. Let's bring this back, Robert, a little bit to the technology itself, because you know so much about the tech. And when we were speaking on text earlier yesterday, you were talking about how there are and I do know this as well, but you probably know this at a much deeper level, than the great number of technologies, for instance, used to create the sensation of voices in the skull or the sound of hearing voices. And there's also, you said, many different ways to affect the nervous system. So neurotech has exploded. Did you want to kind of address that a little bit, perhaps?
Wow, that is such a huge topic. I mean, that's like books upon books.
Yeah.
So I can only talk about what the public knows mostly, and the 4 different ways to pipe voices into people's ears directionally. You either have a microwave radio frequency energy, and a Dr. Wynn from the University of Chicago, demonstrates this, that the brain will vibrate the inner ear with microwave pulses, and you send voices that way. I think it was Medusa is the weaponized army version of that system. There's LRAD.
The Singapore Sling is a gin-based sling cocktail.
Alexa, stop. My AI thought it was
Alexa
talking.
had to join the conversation.
Okay.
Would you like to chat
Oh
with
no,
an
she
Alexa
heard you say her
bot?
name.
Oh no.
Canceling.
And then
I guess that's a demonstration of AI. Sorry.
Yeah, sometimes my Google, and I won't mention her name, get in conversations without me, and I'm like, okay, yeah, humans are upside, But okay, so there's some other technologies. The audio spotlight that works on sound pressure waves, a phase array. You can point at somebody. LRAD, for example, is a long-range acoustic device. Again, you don't understand how the sound is being projected, but the one that's so complicated, and the super secret one, which I'll talk about a little bit because I've already done an MIT interview that I've mentioned it on, and kind of shown how it's going to work. Two brains can create their own language between them, but they have to be trained. They have to be synchronized. So you can use something like the microwave hearing effect on both brains simultaneously, correlate the brainwave patterns, and you have a bidirectional feedback. And eventually they will learn the same vocabulary. And now let's say I'm the man in the middle, trying to decipher the spy, your spy, let's pretend you're a spy. And I'm picking up these radio frequency energies on you. I will not be able to decipher what they mean to your brain. So it's a perfect spy tool. You don't need any electronics, implants, nothing, but it takes a lot of time to develop it. It usually three months to a year. Some people it doesn't work on, but I call it an encrypted photonics, not photonics, encrypted speech. I have simulations with primitive neural networks that I show how it works and how it operates. But That's the super secret one, because that leads to synthetic telepathy. All the emotions can be controlled of the brain, touch, taste, sound. We can induce, record these brain signatures and then realign them for that sensual experience later. Now, the positive things, imagine sharing a dream with your partner and lover, and that'd be a good use.
Yeah, I
But
think we
right,
may have seen that in Solaris or,
yeah,
something like
yeah, or
that.
some others, but right now it's a good torture tool. So we record the tortures, pains, and etc., and replay them on other people, and their brain can't tell the difference. It's suffering. Uh, but we have no, you know how lawyers just make up their own language and definition. Well, it's enhanced interrogation. It's not torture. When the brain, and it still is experiencing the trauma and pain. So those, the snakes who get involved with their spell casting to change the English language and the common definition really bother me sometimes.
Oh, yeah, because that's the same kind of thinking that's transferred over here. And it kind of sounds like from what you were saying, Robert, that you're saying that they're taking two brains and there's no informed consent, obviously, over here.
Right.
This is complete, railroading of consent, completely ignoring, because these are people in the field are reporting that this has happened to them. There is no consent. So they're taking somebody's brain, they're taking somebody's brain waves, they are stealing, harvesting their brain waves, they are examining, categorizing them, and then they're kind of merging. This is heterodyning that you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Heterodyning and cloning. And they're heterodyning with somebody else's brainwaves and then kind of cloning that person's brainwaves onto yours so that you are becoming another person. Your brain is being seen in this equation as a machine. As
Correct. Oh, absolutely correct. And it, it really is. I was going to name my book rather than Project Soul Catchers, Project Soul Stealing. Uh, but I thought
that is what it is. It's stealing.
it literally is. So let's say I'm some rich billionaire and I want to clone my mind and onto a new beautiful body. I can do that. I can literally force a copy of my
That's
brain with
horrible to hear. Oh my
and
God, do you think
learned.
this is
I
happening?
know. I didn't want to say it, but it gets worse. It gets far worse.
With these transhumanists who are busy drinking the blood of babies, you can imagine they would be doing precisely this.
Yeah, they're doing it. But here's the good news. So they're gonna seduce soldiers in the future who cannot die. We store your brainwaves, and we'll just clone it onto someone else's body we don't like, and we got a new body. So you can see where this is going. It's not good. We need these discussions.
This is absolutely terrible. We need these discussions, and we need them with the scientists and the military guys who are actually running these programs,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is absolutely, this is
A
deathly
lot
shocking.
of people can't handle it, and especially the problem. Another problem we run into is while there is such a beautiful future ahead for any technology is neutral, they're using it for such evil based on our current society's morality. And you were asking, why do they have to keep it so secret? Well, you can see 95% of the world is religious. You're taking away the belief of free will now, which the religion relies upon, and justice relies upon free will. So society will become anarchy if they know we've been doing this for so long. So they have to keep it secret.
However, at the very same time, we are seeing now they are keeping the darkest spots secret, no doubt about it, because, this is why TIs are being named mentally ill and so
Yeah.
forth. And that's the mental illness program, which is very, very wrong. And, something that I'm hoping that all of these conversations can change ultimately. But,
Well, could I interrupt you just for a
okay.
moment? Because that's an important point. Is the Russians use their psychology community, shrink community, whatever, to put away dissidents. If you don't
Yeah.
agree with the government, Chinese do it. Americans do it. Now it's in our DSM-5, if you disagree too often. So they've
You
made
have
a,
oppositional defiant disorder, right?
yes, you know the term, yes, correct.
Unbelievable.
Isn't it? Isn't it?
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
And so, but if you go back in history of, let's say, Dr. Ewan Cameron, who was president of the, psychiatric worldwide, community,
Right.
was brainwashing, literally washing, not just programming, washing.
Psychic driving, yeah.
Psychic driving. And they're still using that technique wirelessly on TIs, except now they're chatterbots rather than 2-track tapes to break them down.
I want to
But
get back to that at some point, but never mind. I don't want to
women,
interrupt you.
women with mild depression went in, and the CIA likes to take it out of country so they don't dirty their hands. I think it was the University of Montreal, Toronto. I it was Montreal, and about 100 women he destroyed their lives, their brains, everything with CIA funding. So
right.
if this weapon has existed since then, which it has, all we have to do is pay off the top shrinks to add it to the DSM manual as a symptom of a new neurosis that may have come about, but it's a weapons system
And they've
neurosis.
done it, it sounds like.
And they've done it, and the shrinks aren't scientists. Remember, they just do correlation. Does a drug help? Does it, et cetera. They don't know.
They like
physics.
the drug police.
That's what they are. They're the drug police. As long as the drugs are taxed, they're good to go.
I know,
anyway,
they work side by side with all the totalitarians. They sort of establish fascism. So, I mean, it's frightening what the power that's been given to psychiatrists. This issue of psychic driving, and driving people mad, and that TIs are reporting it. You mentioned that TIs are reporting it. But, part of the larger question here is that there are many forms of mind control that are actually being leveled at everybody, not just TIs. Right?
Yeah. And it's weird. Ever since 9/11, our senators have passed, because they're really controlled by the Pentagon and paid for by all the contracting companies, bribed and et cetera. They pass laws that it's finally legal to use propaganda, although it's always been done, on the U.S. citizens. And they're using counterintelligence. They're going into, Facebook, our support groups, everything, like
Yes.
And they're actually paid government agents to disrupt the conversation.
Oh, yeah. I think I'm familiar with that.
Our tax dollars are paying these idiots to harm the truth from coming out to save us. It's really brilliantly evil. It's just brilliantly evil. So I've always liked the villains and bad guys, often in the James Bond movies, for their brilliance.
Well, in a
my
movie.
own government is brilliantly evil. I got to admire them for that.
Well, real life evil is a little bit different than fiction evil, as you know, Robert. And
and
it is horrifying.
This has gone on for so long and unnoticed.
And that's part of the reason why this hasn't come out. Although I think the main reason it hasn't come out is because media's got the hold on that, it's got the lid on that. I would like to think that we are busting through that lid and, making our voices heard and our presence felt.
I think every bit counts. I never thought I would see a solution in my lifetime. But now, if I live another 10 years, I think we might see something real eventually happen, where the Pentagon said you can do awful things to about 3 to 6% of any population, falsely imprisoned, et cetera, in any country. But if the knowledge of that gets over 6%, then a successful revolution can occur. And so I think we're penetrating that 6% of people know about this level. and that it may be a runaway process that everyone will eventually know, and justice can be served eventually.
I hope you're right on that count. I think the 3 to 6% you're talking about, the Pentagon was directing at other countries, right? I mean,
Yeah, well, Vietnam in particular, but
right. But you're
torture and
right.
prison, but it applies to every country, you know.
It
And
applies to us. And we are
yeah,
the victims of major psyops now that we have, during Obama's time, we have executive orders permitting propaganda, as you said, so the American people are being propagandized kind of legally,
yeah.
quote
Well,
unquote.
everything the Nazis did, killing off the Jews and et cetera, was all legal. So I don't really follow human law that much. It seems quite arbitrary, depending on country, time frame, civilization, etc. So you got to follow your own moral compass. And I know this is horrible, and people need to know the truth.
That's absolutely brilliant, Robert. Thank you for saying that. Do you have any advice for the people inside the CIA, inside the US Navy programs, intelligence agencies, the DoD, who know this is wrong? I mean, there are so many programs ongoing, right? There are the Manchurian candidate programs, the false flag, setting up the
Oh,
lone
hundreds
terrorist
of
programs.
experiments, hundreds.
Hundreds and
Uh,
all sorts of neurological disruption and
yeah,
mental takeover programs. So if these guys know that is wrong and they're still sitting in the dark, and half of them are hive-minded and they're sitting around in round tables inside each other's heads, talking to each other
yeah, yeah. True,
instead of
true, yeah,
developing
true,
themselves,
true,
spiritually.
true.
Um, what can one say to them? Could you say something to them to kind of snap out of it?
No, I posted something on my Facebook page the other day. Uh, I was just, I shame different branches of the government for staying ignorant against the greatest threat humanity and uh, sovereign existence has to deal with. That had to do with the FBI or the government wanting ancestry.com DNA and other things like that. I purposely posted false DNA, lots of tests with different names, including my own, had different people spit on them, etc. So it turns out I'm Adam. I'm related to almost everyone in the world now. So if there's a crime, they come,
Wow.
I'm guilty. The buck
Wait a minute,
stops.
you did your DNA testing and you
Yeah.
discovered you're related?
No, I didn't. So the first 2 DNA tests I did said I wasn't human. And I'm like, okay, that's an insult.
Said you weren't human.
And then I'm like, look at what they've done to the planet. Okay, that's fine. I'm not,
True.
but I bought a bunch of kits to hand out to friends and family as Christmas gifts. And so I decided, no, screw this. I'm going to just make random people, pay them or whatever, spit in these tubes and submit them under my name, children's name and everything else.
What did
And
you do?
so
Stand by the metro and hand out kits?
yeah, pretty much. And so then I just said, the FBI, even if you get your database falsely through asking this private company for their data or forcing them to, your data samples are tampered with. You can't ask for a FISA warrant based on that. I just told you I contaminated your databases, so you can't start breaking in doors. And then I gave the CIA a warning. You were asking me what I've given warnings. I can't remember what the warning. Oh, you can't make genetic weapons. So the CIA was trying to kill off dark-skinned people back in the 60s, and they were working on viral weapons. And now the government has your family line DNA. They can create specific viruses that will only kill off your genetic line.
Oh
So I
my
gave
God.
them a warning, since I'm related to everyone in the world, don't use my DNA sample because you'll be killing yourselves. But
That's
anyway,
really...
you were talking about neuroscience, and no, I do not know how to change those people. They're so brainwashed into false patriotism, radicalism, that I don't think there's any coming back to reality for them.
Do you think they think that this is, obviously when I look at what the kind of weapons, because I look at non-lethal weapons a lot, I'm trying to understand the whole history, etc.
Now remember, these are dial-in lethality, so you got to be careful. Non-lethal means they cannot kill, like maybe pepper spray. These type of weapons make you kill yourself or others or harm yourself, so they're dial-in lethality information weapons.
That's really interesting because these are non-lethal neuro weapons, which actually are also psychological weapons. And I know they're called psychotronic weapons as well,
yeah,
right?
so it's an indirection of murder. And so
Mhm.
they, again, the lawyers have to get involved. Well, technically, we didn't kill them because we talked them to their death. In fact, that's what the colonel said. If you can pipe voices into someone's head, I will find a way to talk them to their death. So they're dial-in lethality, psychological weapons, torture weapons. I mean, it covers a broad range, broad spectrum of language that we haven't settled on yet.
Correct. And it seems to me, just looking at all of this, that the people who are developing these weapons and continuing to use them and continuing to maintain secrecy in order to use them appear to imagine that there's going to be no future without these weapons. These weapons are the future. They're going to continue.
And unfortunately, they're right. I think we can create treaties on regulations and watch groups, but everyone agrees these kind of weapons are better than nuclear weapons or
But who is everybody? Not everybody in the world.
No, but see, that's the problem. No one's in this discussion because they won't tell anybody about what we've done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a small little circle,
it's
like
a small little circle. That's
it's like
correct.
the Cecil Rhodes round table
of the Illuminati. Yes.
Exactly. So it's them, it's not us, I mean, if they ask us, I remember you quoting 95% of the world earlier. 95 to 98% of humanity would simply say no. I think it's only the 2% who want to control everybody else who think that these weapons are great because they involve taking over the brain, and they take over the body.
What
And
does
it's
government
biohacking
mean?
and neurohacking. Who wants that?
Well, what does government mean in Latin? Governor, to steer, meant of the mind, to control the mind. So you're talking about getting rid of government altogether. This is the greatest weapon. You will vote for me and enjoy it and think you're free.
It's incredible, and it seems to me, and of course, talking to other people, they say that the only way to combat this weaponry is to develop yourself spiritually and kind of beat it that way.
Yeah, and that actually is true. If you purify yourself, they use the 7 deadly sins, for example, to manipulate people. If you can purify yourself from those, they have no levers of which to control you.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So there is truth to that. Yeah.
And the other aspect to it that I just wanted to mention is the whole issue of neuroethics. That has become a field now, neuroethics and bioethics, although it appears that it exists.
Taken 20 years, but
but it's still questionable as to what that field is doing. I mean, who's running the neuroethics field? Look at Dr. James Giordano. He is a military neuroscientist. He's very vocal. He gives a lot of lectures. We see his videos on YouTube.
University
and hey, he's running the neuroethics department at Georgetown. What the heck does that mean?
Okay, yeah.
How does a military neuroscientist get to run the neuroethics department in Georgetown?
Yeah, it does seem like a conflict of interest, doesn't it? There will be other leaders to step forward that I think might be more believable. Everything I've heard from them seems right and good. So, I'm not gonna
well, I'm grateful to him for having spoken out because he has published to the world the extent and depth and range and scope of this horrific neurotechnology that's currently in use, by the DoD and by the DOJ, because he's talked about predictive neurotechnologies as well. So he's done a lot of talking. He's doing a lot of public speaking. He's actually literally putting the information out in plain sight. But, the question is, how ethical is this information? Because he's talking about it as an inevitability. We have this neurotech, we have this neuroweaponry. We're going to use it, etc., etc.
You can never take, once man discovered fire, you're never taking that technology away from them. So we have to find a way to cope, deal, move forward. And maybe once we understand, the whole public, everybody understands this technology, you will get accelerated education. You don't have to waste millions of dollars and 30 years of your life, and you can have that information right in your brain and all the good things that may come from it. Maybe society will agree to it. Individually, they will join the hive mind. But don't steal minds, don't steal brains, don't be doing this horrific human maximum pain torture stuff that they're doing right now, and try to shape politics by creating people hear voices go shoot up schools and etc. So you want to take away the gun rights of your country by stimulus response to the voters and give pressure to the politicians. That's so old school. I don't know if they really think we're that dumb, but maybe we are. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. It's, I guess once something has been created, you can't uncreate it.
No, you can't. I mean,
But
what are you going to do? Burn books, purge computers, kill people who know that information? Yeah, you can't uncreate the knowledge. No.
but you can regulate, as you say,
Yes. Yeah.
you can regulate. I mean, this is what Princess Diana was trying to do with the landmines, to get the world to ban landmines, etc.
Yeah.
And I don't know to what extent she was successful. We know that she was killed, but
Well, yeah, or depleted uranium
mhm.
we use for tank piercing bullets. Well, when we're done conquering that country, there's radioactive material everywhere, and children are going to be deformed, born deformed or die, early cancer deaths, and etc. The cost of war is so much greater than the way the Pentagon general accountant does the cost. I assure you.
That's right. And
Anyway,
that's the situation that we are facing today. Robert, this has been an incredible conversation. I think we've gone a lot of places, and I think you've covered so much. And I thank you for your candor, because I think that was the greatest part of this conversation. We had a sort of all, gloves off, no holds barred kind of conversation tonight. Perhaps we should close on, because there is a need, to regulate this technology, because it is causing harm. It's causing grave harm to many, many people, thousands, hundreds of thousands. I mean, do you have a figure even as to how many TIs there are in the world?
minimum, I have a minimum, which is 10,000, but the maximum is much, much larger. And so the gap of what we know of who's being affected by this, it could be everyone in the world to some extent, just not tortured, but influenced. So yeah, we don't know. That's why we need someone to answer these questions with a much higher security clearance.
We definitely do. I mean, I would personally, issue a call at any time to anybody who is inside, the secret services, the intelligence agencies, DoD, to step forward, to sort of listen to the call of your heart and your conscience, because it's very important. Humanity is at stake here.
So
Right?
I actually did the reverse. I know Trump doesn't listen to me, but I said, you need to completely reorganize the intelligence agency structures, fire everybody, let them reapply for their jobs, because some of them are lacking the true loyalty of the Constitution and humanity here. Keep the ones in the field you think are still good, but no, I want a complete reorg of our government. It's failed us. This is one example of
That's a
many.
great place to start. Reorganization of the government. to take these tools away from those who wish harm to humanity and who are indeed engaging in harm to humanity. I was going to ask his closing words, Robert, if you wanted to say anything to people who are watching, who are listening, who
Well,
understand what's going on and who perhaps, I mean, what can people take away from this? People who don't know that this is going on and people who do know that this is going on. What
yes,
can people do?
those are two different audiences.
That's true.
Those
Sorry.
who, well, there's something coming up. You said this is live. So there's the Patriot Act and the NDAA, and there was another one that kind of gave the government unlimited surveillance powers, which reading the mind and the bioelectricity is a surveillance technology. The Electronics Eavesdropping Act, the senators won't even touch, is so outdated. It's from like the 50s. So they clearly want more government power, but there's a 215, Section 215 of the Patriot Act is coming up to vote in March, I think 15th. So pressure your senators to make sure they do not allow it to proceed. Now, I can't remember if that's a positive vote or a negative vote, but say do not allow the Section
215 to be renewed, right?
Renewed, correct.
Yeah, I think it came up in 2015, and I remember, posting petitions, writing impassioned notes on my website, telling people, call your senators, tell them not to renew. And of course, they renewed it in 2015.
No, when they did it, they renewed the Patriot Act while Trump was being impeached. Everyone's distracted by that. So they use all these techniques to make sure the public doesn't know what they're really up to. And, grabbing for power, money, insider trading with all the senators. And our government's so corrupt, it's just out of control. But anyway, it's been a good talk, but we do need to end this, and maybe we'll have another one again.
I hope so. Thanks very much, Robert. I think that's great advice to end on. And, we understand the government is corrupt. The senators are corrupt. The Congress is corrupt. But, it's our voices ultimately that can make a difference.
That's
right. So let's focus on the positive, right?
Yeah, and on a positive.
Focus on the positive and on a positive note. And, each of us take steps, speak out, be public about your dissent to the Patriot Act, Section 215. Let senators know your thoughts, etc. And perhaps there will be a change. And that's the first step. And there are many other steps, no doubt, that each of us can take. So on that note, Robert, thank you again so very much for doing this interview at short notice. Or actually, we'd arranged it for a couple of weeks, I think. But thank you for making time tonight. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you again very soon. Bye-bye.
Cheers.